Hi everyone, welcome back to Hooked on Sport. It's Thursday the 30th of January, and in this episode we'll be looking at the week's sporting issues, chat with Shane Bewry from the SA Athletic League about this weekend's Camden Classic Carnival, catch up with Anthony Telford from the Spirit of Cricket. G'day Hooky.
Wallace, how you going? Now, this is going out on a Thursday, but it is Wednesday afternoon as we record, and our boy Travis Head at the crease, opening the batting. He hit 3 of his first 5 balls for 4. So he is clearly in a mood to try and take down the Sri Lankans in a hurry. That's going to be fun to watch over the course of the rest of the afternoon and evening. And I'm a single parent tonight, so perfect for me. The TV will be on all evening.
Let's just do a wrap on last week. We had Eric Ballner from the Adelaide Giants on. Unfortunately, they went down in
2-1 in the first match on the Friday night, 5-3 down in the second match. So a great year, defending the title, of course. And disappointing, Wallace, that they came up just one short. Would have loved to have seen it at least get to a game 3.
I mean, it was amazing to watch the Perth team. They fielding over those 2 games was unbelievable. Really,
I think Eric said that there's a couple of lads tied to the Tampa Bay Rays that I think we might see in the major league in the next year or two. So, look, disappointed to be beaten, but I guess you can't knock when you get beaten by a really good quality outfit, and Perth definitely are.
Yeah. Now, last week you mentioned you're putting yourself up for your first marathon in August in the Gold Coast. How's your running been this week?
You are just keeping the foot on my throat, aren't you? Making sure that I'm up for it. Actually, I had a decent week this week. I got up over 40 kilometres, which is as aggregate. Did 116 and a bit kilometre run, and then probably 4 or 5 other runs. Tomorrow is my long day run. I'm aiming to do best part of 20, I think, tomorrow, before I might back it off the week after. But I know I feel like I'm in good form. I've done a really good long sustained period to get a base up, and I really felt like this week that there was a bit of evidence that that's paying off. So I'm never going too fast, but I do feel like I can hold a reasonable velocity and not blow up, and that's, I guess, a fair bit of the battle in a marathon, isn't it?
Yeah, well done. Now let's move on to the issues in sport. First cab off the rank, Yannick Sinner wins Australian Open, but more accolades for Darren Cahill.
Yeah, his coach, Darren Cahill, of course, the South Australian, very heavily involved with the Port Adelaide Football Club, of course, been a board member there previously. But I tell you what, we revere coaches here in South Australia, and in particular our footy coaches. So Foss Williams, obviously, Jack Oatey, who coached Sturton Norwood to 10 flags, and even Darren's father, John, is revered as one of those all-time legendary coaches. And I think if you consider what he has done over such a sustained period, Darren Cahill belongs in the same conversation as one of our all-time greatest South Australian sporting coaches. Let's just go through the list. Leighton Hewitt became the second youngest world number 1 ever under Cahill. Andre Agassi became the oldest world number 1 ever under Darren Cahill. He took Andy Murray to number 1. He took Anna Ivanovic to number 1. He took Simona Halep to number 1. And now he's taken Yannick Sinner to number 1. So that's 6 world number 1s, wow. And none of them are named Federer, Nadal or Djokovic. I think it is an incredible record. We have raved for the last 3 years here in Australia about Ange Postecoglou, and that maybe he's the greatest sporting coach of all time. Now, I've always said that Rick Charlesworth is the number 1 all-time greatest sporting coach in Australia. Of course, did a wonderful job with both the Hockey Roos and the Kookaburras. But Ange Postecoglou, raved as the greatest coach of all time. He's hit a real stark reality at Tottenham, hasn't he? He's in the conversation to be sacked from that role very shortly. And I don't think he's even in the conversation as the greatest coach of this time, let alone all time. I mean, Darren Cahill, his longevity and what he has done really sets him apart. So, yeah, I was looking through the Tennis Australia Hall of Fame, and it's very rare to see coaches or officials in there, but I would argue that Darren Cahill is going to be long remembered as one of the all-time greats as a coach, any sport, in some time to come.
The women's winner, Madison Keys, was also the Adelaide International winner.
Yeah, what a great story that is. So she won 12 matches in a row. 8 of them were over 3 sets. She beat some incredible names along the way, not just at the Australian Open, but also here at the Adelaide International. Wallace, 3 of the last 4 Adelaide International winners have gone on to win the Australian Open. So Novak Djokovic did it in the men, and we have seen Ash Barty do it and Madison Keys do it as well. So there's got to be a slogan for the Adelaide International, doesn't there? Where champions begin or the winners base camp or something like that. I reckon we should lean into the fact that it is a great lead-in event. If you want to do well in the Australian Open and you're a top-line player, then come and play the Adelaide International. We are a great event to set yourself up for a big 2 weeks in Melbourne.
Now, we're recording just as the men's Australian team is playing their first test against Sri Lanka, but there's one selection that you're disappointed about.
I have to get this off my chest, Wallace. I cannot believe that Travis Head is not the captain of this team. There are joint vice-captains in the Australian cricket team beneath Captain Pat Cummins at the moment, and they are Travis Head and Steve Smith. And for reasons beyond my comprehension, Steve Smith was chosen to be the captain of this 2-test series when Patrick Cummins decided to take the time off for family reasons. Perfectly understandable. Let's be honest, Steve Smith has been the captain of Australia before, and that ended in disgrace. Now, I don't think that precluded him from ever being a leader ever again, and maybe the penalty he copped at the time was a little bit too harsh. But quite frankly, in a dead 2-test rubber, when the World Test Championship Series has already been determined, surely the 31-year-old who could very comfortably be the full-time Australian captain in 18 months to 2 years' time, this was a perfect opportunity for him to, I guess, audition or debut for the role in what has been a relatively unchallenging period. We could see in as soon as 12 months that Pat Cummins misses a test through injury, Steve Smith getting very old. Suddenly, Travis Head could be the captain of Australia. This was a perfect opportunity to give him that experience. I understand that it's very difficult to be critical of the Australian team because they hold every bilateral trophy at the moment. They're the world champions and they are the world one-day champions. But I always cringe at the way that they fail to future-proof themselves, and I thought it was very, very disappointing that Travis Head wasn't given the opportunity to captain these 2 tests.
Do you like Travis Head opening the batting?
I have to be honest, I do. I wrestled with this for a while because I never really thought that opening the batting suited him, but it probably does here in these conditions, and he's historically struggled a little bit batting in the middle order in the subcontinent. I do ask this question. I know Australia are sort of flirting with a flexible batting lineup, but I have to ask the question, Travis Head is the most important person in the batting order for Australia. Why has he become, at home, inherently the number 5 batter? Because sometimes for Australia, batting at number 5, he comes in a little bit too early if we've lost 3 quick wickets. Or if we end up at 3 for 300, he probably comes in a little bit too late. So I would argue the toss that Travis Head should be the next man in the minute we've batted 15 overs here in Australia. And I don't mind the concept of saying, righto, well, this is going to spin and get harder and harder to bat on as the match goes on. Let's get our most important batter in now when the conditions are best for batting, because that's what you want from Travis Head. If the conditions are best for batting, you know that Travis is going to make the most of it. So yes, short answer. Love him opening the batting in this series, but I would use him as a bit of a weapon. He goes in next when batting is at its easiest because he will often enough destroy oppositions and take games away from them.
Yep. Hooky, anything else catch your eye this week across local sport?
Yeah, look, a couple of things actually did, Wallace. I just want to put a watch out on the Goodwood Cricket Club in the Adelaide Turf Cricket Association. So they're the 2-time champions, won the last 2 years, and they're 7-0 this year, and they could go undefeated, and that's quite unbelievable in a cricket season. So we'll keep an eye on what Goodwood Cricket Club are doing. In the same competition, I just want to recognise a couple of Para Hills legends. Travis Wordsworth became their club's highest A-grade run scorer. He has in excess of 7,010 runs. That record was held by Peter Box. And pretty much at the same time, Grant Carey, their leg spinner, took 500 wickets for the club. So a couple of blokes that I know very well, incredible cricketers. They've been devotees of Para Hills, and they both certainly deserve accolades for what they've achieved. I just want to recognise Tara Palm as well. We sort of recognise here in this town, Wallace, that it's all about Jessica Stenson and Izzy Bat-Doyle when it comes to distance running. Tara Palm is not far behind both of them. She's just run the Osaka half marathon and run it in 70:55. So 1 hour, 10 minutes and 55 seconds. She finished 8th overall. That's a personal best for her. So that is incredible performance from Tara Palm. And just the last bloke I mentioned is Jack Buchanan, who's going to make his debut on the Asian Tour in golf tomorrow, Wallace. He's playing the DLF tournament, which is at a remarkable course that was designed by Gary Player. I won't get into the details of it, but Jack Buchanan, on the strength of the fact that he finished top 5 in the Live Golf Promotions qualifiers, gets a start in the International Series events all year. This is his first one that begins in India tomorrow. So good luck to Jack Buchanan. That's my little quick roundup on what's going on in South Australian local sport.
Oh, that's great, Hooky. After the break, we'll be catching up with Shane Bewry from SA Athletic League and hearing about the upcoming Camden Classic this weekend.
If you're enjoying this podcast, I'd encourage you to take a listen to Beyond the Club. It's a project I've been working on with Flinders University. Now I co-host it with Professor Sam Elliott, and we break down all the latest research on how to maximise the experience of junior and club athletes. There's a range of resources, special guests, and cutting-edge info on how you can make your club a safer, happier place for your kids and their club mates. Beyond the Club, wherever you get your podcasts.
Ben, let's turn our attention to pro running that's run here in South Australia by the SA Athletic League. They do a fantastic job. Coming up this weekend is the Camden Classic, one of the highlights on their calendar. Joining us now from the SA Athletic League is Shane Bewry. Shane, welcome.
Thank you, gentlemen. Good afternoon to all.
Now, the Bay Sheffield is obviously your blue ribbon event. Where does the Camden Classic rate?
Look, it probably, Wallace sits just behind the Bay Sheffield. The key focus in the major events at Camden are the 400-metre women's and men's classic events, whereas the Bay Sheffield is predominantly the sprints. They take the glory down there and they get the headlines, notwithstanding that there is a range of events at the Bay Sheffield, but it certainly sits close in behind Bay Sheffield.
Shane, there seems to have been a real uptick in the prestige around this event, and I guess in part because Camden Oval has been redeveloped. It looks amazing now. They've always put a lot of effort into it, but even, the pavers for the winners, which I know we do for the Bay Sheffield as well, down in front of Collie Reserve there, but all of those sorts of things, I imagine for the athlete, there is a lot riding on being a Camden Classic winner.
Certainly is, Ben. It's I think at the South Australian Athletic League this year, more so than ever, we've tried to recognise that the pro running events are an event as opposed to just an athletic race. Now, that's not to dismiss or disrespect any of the amateur athletic races. I mean, you go to the States and the national titles and there's terrific athletes running. But as far as an event with perhaps entertainment, a little bit of razzmatazz, think of Live Golf and those events around that. That's probably the event status that we're trying to create for the cell. And we've certainly achieved that to some extent at the Bay Sheffield down at Collie. I mean, that lends itself to event status and all of the show business that goes with it far better than most. And we're trying to do a little bit of that at Camden. But you will certainly see a focus on event status with the cell over the next couple of years.
Shane, let's just touch on the Camden Classic. As we've already outlined, a massive event for both men and women. Perhaps just give us a bit of your own preview. Let's start with the women. Who do you think is going to be around the mark come the final race?
The women's race for the 400-metre Camden Classic is pretty much characterised by the youth that have come through. I think the favourite for the race is Charlotte McAuliffe. She's an Australian under-20 representative that's just been over late 2024 competing in Peru for Australia. Charlotte's 16, I think, 15 to 16. She's probably the fastest 400-metre runner almost in the nation these days, particularly under 20. So Charlotte's running. We've got a number of other really key competitors: Victoria Chalsh, Georgie Fielder, Milan Murphy, who's the sister of Aidan Murphy, a good sprinter. Okay.
Yeah, well, he's got a reputation.
He certainly has. Emma Henkel and Ella Byrne. Ella Byrne runs in everything from the sprints all the way through to the middle distance. So it's a really tight field. Charlotte McAuliffe will be starting well back, I dare say, and giving them a few metres start. But I would expect her to almost run them down on a pretty tight corners at Camden. They're pretty tough to navigate at all the pro races, make a race of it. But look, they're all local runners. They're all really putting in hard and participating in a lot of the cell events. So it's good to see. So it'll be a really strong field.
Shane, you brought up the young Murphy girl, Aidan Murphy, the older brother, I would imagine. He holds the 100 and 200 metre record in amateur running, and his mum, Tanya Van Heer, holds the state record in 100 and 200 for the women. So certainly some pedigree there. Just what was her first name again, the Murphy girl that we'll keep an eye out for? Milan, there you are.
Melarn. Yeah,
one
so
to
there's certainly some history there in that family, and Milan's a really good runner over both the 100, 200, and out to the 4. So it'll be interesting to see how she goes. And you're right, her mother holds records for quite some time now, and no one's beating them.
No. And what about the men, Shane?
Okay, so the men's field, I think we've been very lucky with the women's racing in the Sal over the last few months. It's been incredibly high caliber. We've had a lot of elite athletes here, and in some respects, it's overshadowed the men's running. But that's not to be disrespectful to the men by any means. I think the key chances in the men's Camden Classic is Blake Jones, Ryan Atkins, Toby Cook, Thomas McClure, Hayden Roth, and an ex-Melbourne Victory soccer player, Lewis Laurie Latanzio.
Wow.
So they're the 6 key chances we see there. Blake Jones is he's having his second start in the Classic, and he's a very fast runner, bronze medalist at the state championships in the 400 last year. On the other side, Ryan Atkins has been running for a long time in these events, always a finalist, and it'd be terrific to see him. I think he's been in 8 of these events, or 7 of these events, and made the finals. It'd be good to see him win one with his 8th.
He's due, surely, Shane.
Yes, and I think if my memory serves me correctly, he runs out of Port Adelaide, so he's a good local boy, and we like to get behind the locals.
Shane, perhaps we'll have people listening and they're talking about how, one athlete is giving another a bit of a head start. Just explain for those who are perhaps new to all of this, how pro running works, how the handicap system works, and I guess how the scrutineers on these sorts of things have to adjust people's handicaps as they improve and start to win a few races.
Pro athletics is different to the amateurs, and it's a very historical view, really, in precedence. The pro events are characterised by having athletes prescribed a handicap in accordance with their speed over X metres of running. So let's use the 120-metre sprint as the example here. The athletes, in accordance with their times, have an established metres per second rate, and the handicapper can identify the fastest through to the slowest and prescribe them a handicap of meterage to theoretically have everybody finish on the dime at the same time. That doesn't always work, and it's easier said than done. However, logically and statistically, it can be done. And for an example, the back marker may be of 0 metres, so they will run the full 120-metre sprint, and we may have front runners all the way out to 15 to 20 to 25 metres with a head start effectively there. The logic is, again, that they will all conclude simultaneously. And what it provides is very competitive running. If you go to the state or national athletics for amateurs, you'll find races characterised by the faster sprinters getting out in front and winning convincingly, and less of a competitive finish, if you like. So the pros are characterised by handicaps, exactly the same as the Melbourne Cup. The handicappers and the judges and the stewards, etc., monitor this. They provide a level of governance to keep an eye on performances on the day, because some runners may not run up to speed on a particular day to try and preserve their handicap for a later event. Exactly the same as the stewards do in the Melbourne Cup. Keep an eye on the horses and the jockeys that don't put in their best, if you like, and try, through to runners that are beating their handicap well and truly, and they'll be pulled back. So the handicaps each year and each meet can adjust up and down in accordance with the speed of the racer.
With that in mind, does it mean that you have a greater range of ages that can compete?
Yes, you certainly do, Wallace. We have in the sprints, as an example, we'll have the 15 to 16-year-old youths that are coming through, running against a range of people in the open, typical elite area, through to the over 35s. They can all go in the open athletics meets, and they can all be handicapped to theoretically have a competitive finish.
I seem to recall there was a woman from Perth who I think might have even been in her 60s who entered in the Women's Bay Sheffield last year. Shane, you might recall that story better than me.
I do remember the one you mean, yes. And she competed very well, and she was super fit. I wasn't sure if she was in her 60s, would have been maybe mid-50s, I think, but extraordinarily fit, extraordinarily well prepared. Didn't quite make the final, but certainly competed hard and was nowhere near a front runner.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it is there are a whole host of athletic abilities. Obviously, you've got to be a good runner if you're going to be entering in a Bay Sheffield or a Camden Classic, of course. But the fact that the good runner and the great runner can actually have a decent race off is a wonderful asset that pro running offers. Hey, can we just touch back on last weekend, the Ranella Gift? I did have a quick look at those races online. My goodness, Jordan McMillan, who a former Bay Sheffield winner, won it in 2018. What a thrilling race that was. The youngster who pipped her, well, she just couldn't peg her back, could she, in that final? But she's really impressive to me, Jordan. I mean, you see a lot of these young kids who do well as a teenager in sprinting, and they can kind of never quite take that next step. But she's a 100-metre champion in the amateur level, and she's very heavily invested in pro running as well. You must be really impressed with what she's doing.
Oh, absolutely. Geordie's an outstanding runner and a terrific person. She runs not only in the track for the amateur athletics, she runs in the SAL events for the pros. She runs in the surf events on the sand, which is a pretty tough old event. So she's an outstanding young lady. And so she ran off a handicap of 0.75 last week. She was pipped by the narrowest of margins.
2/100ths of a second or something, I think I saw, Shane.
Yes, or one 1/100th, I think, of a second, by Lakeisha Sheffield, who was off 9 metres. So she got a 9-metre head start, and Geordie nearly ran her down. And Geordie has been starting as a back marker for years now because she's so quick. So for those out there that recognise the really good runners, invariably they are starting back in the red on the back marker. And that's just a fact of life of being a sharp runner. And Geordie, she'll be heading off to the Nationals in April in Perth with all the other elite talent around the place, if you like.
Yeah, credit to the handicapper for that one. The first and second 1/100th of a second apart. Shane, can you just take us back to the Bay Sheffield? It's an iconic event in South Australia. It is just a really special part of that period between Christmas and New Year. Just take us back to those last few days of 2024 and what that event means to South Australia.
Well, I might start again, Ben, with the women's race there, because we had a significant level of talent come to South Australia on the women's 120-metre Bay Sheffield. None more so than Bree Masters, our Olympian in 2024. She was pipped in the final by the barest of margins by Taylor Spackman, a local girl. And just to talk to the handicap there, Bree, of course, was off. She was the back marker off 0. Taylor Spackman got a 6.5-metre start, and Bree couldn't quite run her down. But, importantly, it was an outstanding final. Bree is an outstanding athlete and ambassador for the game. So for our youth, the young girls and the young boys that were in the area and all running in their events, to see someone like Bree Masters turn up, such a professional and such an outstanding young lady, was terrific. But really competitive field. We had 2 or 3 of the Australian under 20 sprinters. The ladies turn up. They didn't even make the final. They were knocked out prior to the final, but it just goes to echo the competitive nature of the women's sprinting down here in South Australia. It's an outstanding. But 2 of our other local competitors made the final, Olivia Hastings, Kayla Lem, that came in 5th and 6th, and they're really hardened professionals, and they go to the Nationals every year, etc. So it was a great final. The women's. Men's Bay Sheffield was won by Sam Clark, Queenslander, off 6 metres. A very competitive field in the men's. Local boy Thomas Semler came equal second with Dashiell Muir. So we had a dead heat for second and third. But Sam Clark, Queenslander, came down. Wasn't really necessarily favoured to win. Put together an outstanding run in the final. Was running him away from them on the line, frankly. He only won by 0.2 of a second, but his acceleration was extraordinary. And we had 3 other local boys, the Blisno twins and Tom Perry, coming 4th, 5th and 6th, respectively. So another great field. We didn't necessarily get the national appeal into the men's like we did with Bree Masters and Olivia May and these sorts of people that came to town for the women's, but nonetheless, tough fields. A lot of entries. Entries are up for the Bay Sheffield, and the event was simply outstanding.
Shane, before we get away from the Bay Sheffield, for those who've never been there before, just describe what it's like as an event for the athlete and the fan, because they are remarkably close together.
It's a small oval, Collie. I wouldn't characterise it necessarily as an oval. It's a small strip of grass, probably only 50 metres wide. It's an amphitheatre, and the crowd look around and on top of the athletes, 360 degrees around the oval. It is just such a one-off event, and such a unique environment. We have corporate hospitality, we have the Cooper's Beer Garden, we have the wine lounge area, we have VIP corporate hospitality. We have Terry McAuliffe calling all of the races, if you like. We had a DJ there this year. And look, there was probably 4,000 to 5,000 people there this Bay Sheffield. So that's a really good crowd down there at Collie. And so it's just getting bigger and bigger as an event, if you like, particularly with the nighttime Saturday night 70-metre final. That created a really unique atmosphere. Sunday's major final late in the afternoon, sort of 5 to 6 o'clock, allowed everybody to get home in time for getting the kids into bed ready for school, So it's a really unique location, Collie Reserve, Glenelg.
Shane, looking ahead to Stawell in April, are there any South Australian athletes who might be competitive there?
A lot of the South Australian competitors will head over there that have done well here over the Bay Sheffield Carnival and associated. I'm not sure how they place with the Victorian handicappers to see whether they're uniquely in a better position than they may have been in South Australia. The VAL, the Victorian League, and the CEL collaborate pretty effectively together to make sure that we have consistent handicapping and it's fair for all of the athletes. So you would expect that our top athletes will head over there. I did note that Aidan Murphy didn't run in the Bay Sheffield this year. I would expect that Aidan would probably go over there. A couple of the Grange track squad athletes that I'm familiar with, Ali Whittingham and co, they will head over. I would expect Kayla Lem and Olivia Hastings and co. So the premier runners, the elite talent, Thomas Semler, they would all be very competitive over there. But keep in mind with Stawell, we have the Queenslanders and the New South Welshmen come down. That really adds an extra piece of strength. One of the Queensland girls won it last year that also won the Surf Australian titles on sand. So, Chloe Maddox Power. The performance and the competition lifts again beyond Bay Sheffield for Stawell. It's the premier event in Australia for pro aths.
And historically, Victorians have never done South Australian athletes any favours at all, Shane. So we wouldn't expect the Victorian Athletic League giving us too many freebies. Hey, just before we wrap it up, what about your own form, Shane? You getting out there and competing much yourself?
Oh, I'd love to, Ben. I'm a bit of a broken down old hack, but can't run much anymore. But my kids run, and they're running in the under 18s for SAL and national and all that sort of stuff. So that's enough for me to keep me motivated. I get to watch them.
Oh, brilliant. Shane, thank you so much for your time.
Good on you guys.
It's the opening day of the first test, Sri Lanka versus Australia. And our guest, Anthony Telford, the man behind the spirit of cricket in Australia, is joining us before he's about to head over there for the second test. Welcome, Anthony.
Hello, Wallace. How are you? And hello, Hooky.
Telf, you are the luckiest man on earth heading over to Gaul to be part of what is going to be an amazing test series. I'll just give you a quick update. This just to I guess, timestamp it. Australia have won the toss and batted, no wicket for 54 after 9 overs. And our fellow South Aussie, Travis Head, 40 from 29 balls. So you're missing a little bit now, my man, but I tell you what, you're going to have a great experience in a week or so's time.
Oh, exactly. Well, I arrive there this time tomorrow night. We're on a plane out of Adelaide tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. and we'll go Adelaide, Melbourne, Singapore, Colombo. And we'll probably get a bit of a shock with the humidity over there, but we're over there for 2 weeks with a touring party of 20. And we're looking to play some cricket, watch some cricket and enjoy what is the Sri Lankan culture.
It's going to be amazing. Telf, the spirit of cricket, it's been something that you have really driven here in South Australia and Australia for the last 4 or 5 years. It's commendable in amongst a backdrop where there has been, how would I say, differences of opinion over what the spirit of cricket actually is. How have you navigated your way through challenges like the Johnny Bairstow run out and differences of opinion on what the spirit of cricket actually is? How have you been able to remain steadfast?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of misconceptions about what the spirit of cricket is, but, it was developed by Dexter and Cowdrey back in the 70s and 80s, and they developed eight laws. But basically, it's about playing the game hard but fair. It's being respectful of the umpires, the opposition, your teammates, the captain, your coach. But finally, it's also being about being gracious and saying thanks to those people who allow us to play the game. And that's what the spirit of cricket is all about. So playing hard and fair, I always apply that rule to any incident in a test match, a one-day or a T20, whatever it might be. And if it was played within the rules and hard and fair, then it's within the spirit of cricket. That's the simplest explanation of what the spirit of cricket is all about.
Telf, I remember around about 7 or 8 years ago that there was a real level of nastiness, in particular in and amongst Sheffield Shield cricket, and that seems to have abated a little bit. Maybe Sandpaper Gate was the catalyst behind that. But do you feel like your message is having some real cut through, perhaps not so much at the international level, but the park bench cricket that you and I have cut our teeth on?
Yeah, look, I'm probably more worried about what happens at park cricket level, Hooky. It's because we see things happen on television, in the media at that highest level, and the average park cricketer sees it and thinks, well, if they do it, then I can do it and I can get away with it. That's open game. So, to see Kohli's shirt front Sam Constance in a test match and go out of his way, I can guarantee you that there's 100 cricketers out there going, well, Kohli did it, and he got 20% of his match fee taken out of his back pocket, which he can do quite easily.
That wouldn't have affected him too much, I wouldn't have thought, mate.
Not at all. It's so, and that really disappoints me that these leaders and ambassadors of our great game are doing things like that and getting away with it, and then that basically gives everyone a pass to be able to go on and do that out in a local cricket club competition, and that's the level. That's where I worry about it, because at that highest level, I think there's enough cameras and microphones and obviously official match referees and umpires to adjudicate and make sure that it is played in the right spirit. But at clubland, that's where we've got the work to do.
Telf, your main focus is about the way the game is played, playing it with respect for the game and also your opposition.
Pretty much, and the umpires and everyone that's involved with the game. That's what it's about. And look, we're only on this planet for a short time, and I've played cricket probably since I was, 5 or 6 years old, and I'm still going at 60. And I just want to leave the place and the game in a better situation and try and make people realise that it is a great game and to play it the right way, to play it hard. I've played a lot of cricket and I've played it really hard, and at times I've probably crossed the line. But now looking back, I want to make sure that we leave the game in a better place and teach our kids that are coming through, in a better way of how to actually play the game.
Telf, we chatted 5 years ago, and in particular, you were very heavily involved in the development of veterans cricket, and that has exploded over the last 5 years. But just explain how Spirit of Cricket and what you've created and developed there sits alongside of that. I would contend that the oldies that you and I guess, are very much the demographic of these days tend to play cricket with that Spirit of Cricket foremost in mind. But I imagine you've developed other methods to, I guess, spread the word, if you like. In fact, we've even got a single that you've released that we'll definitely outro with you at the end of this chat.
Oh, wonderful stuff. The single produced and written by Paul Costa, and of course myself. Of course, I'm a musician of some talent, but
get your name in there in case there's royalties, mate.
Well, we're hoping that some media or TV station will pick it up and run with it, and then I'll be able to retire in Sri Lanka rather than having to pay and go over there. But look, that was an excellent opportunity to try and spread the word in a different way. I've also linked up with the Nelson twins, 2 comedians who are school teachers, and we've written a curriculum. Once again, another crazy idea of mine to try and make a difference at junior levels through schools. So schools with a cricket program and cricket clubs that want to teach their kids how to play the right game. It's a 1-hour session, and it's based around playing hard, playing fair, being respectful and being gracious. So there's lots of activities and learnings through that. and we've been rolling that out here in Adelaide. We've had Prince Alfred College, we've had Ross Trevor, and we've had St Peter's. And part of that curriculum, we bring in our T20 Legends team, all over 50s guys who go and play against their A-grade team. And we got beaten by Prince Alfred, but we beat St Peter's, and I think we even beat Ross Trevor. So that's all part of that, I guess, a different way of getting that message across of how to play the game. And we've had fantastic feedback from principals right through to the school teachers, the mums and the dads, and even the cricket coordinators about how powerful the message is, and then being able to put it into practice out on the cricket fields, just another way of promoting what we're about.
Telf, how do you see that you'll expand that and get a greater reach with your message?
Well, we're about to launch a global cricket competition, over 50s T20, in 7 different countries around the world. We ran a pilot tournament in Mildura back in September of last year, where we had 8 franchise owners. We had a player draft, all over 50s guys, who were then selected into a franchise. And then we ran the 4-day competition in Mildura. We'll roll that exact same program out into 7 countries. So we're going to Sri Lanka, America, South Africa, India, Pakistan, and England over the next 12 months. And we will take the Spirit of Cricket brand and the message to all corners of the world, and engage with all of I think there's about 900 players that will engage, and they will be all given the 1-hour curriculum as part of their course, and then hopefully take that message back to their cricket club or their local school and roll that program out there.
Telf, you're no stranger to a microphone. We appreciate your time today, but I know you have your own conversations in and amongst your Spirit of Cricket community. You had a chat recently with Greg Chappell. Wallace and I are very lucky that we play golf at the same golf club as Greg, and occasionally in the same group, and you might get 5 minutes walking down a fairway where you can chat something with him. But just your experience of chatting with GC. I know you did that with Peter Walsh, who's a legendary South Australian media performer, but just what were some of your highlights from chatting to Greg Chappell?
Sitting there listening, that was my highlight. Look, I've had I don't know, probably 7 or 8 people in the media contact me and say, how did you organise that? Well, it took probably 4 years of communication with him to get to that point. Obviously, him and Walshy go back a long way from the broadcasting days and international cricket days, and they are friends. So I had it in there, but we connected with GC back at the Nationals, and unfortunately he wasn't well and had to miss that. But ever since then, I've stayed in contact with him and shown him our curriculum, and he's even endorsed our curriculum as basically our ambassador as we roll it out. So it's good to put his name to it. But I played cricket with Trevor Chappell up in Sydney. I recently interviewed Ian Chappell as part of the Johnny Muller Medal and the Harrow Discovery Centre over in Victoria. And I basically said to GC, I said, there's only one Chappell that I haven't interviewed. When are we doing it? And it took a little bit of time, but we finally secured him. And look, what an honour to sit there, listen to him, but get the opportunity to ask him, questions directly and answer them. I think one of the things we spoke about afterwards was, and this was with Walshy, was that his memory is just spot on. He can remember everything that happened out on the field with his players and even behind the scenes, and that's what stuck out in my memory. But he's such a gentleman. That's the other part. And I also know him. I think Flipper plays with him, doesn't he? I think they're part of a golf team. They play with each other once a week or something. They get out and have a hit. Maybe.
Wednesday mornings, Greg's become part of our group. Wayne, we haven't seen for a little while. We've seen Wayne's brother, Rod.
Yep.
Rod Phillips, who's very heavily involved in cricket, SACA board member, great player for Sturt, now on the Adelaide Oval Stadium Management Authority board. We see a bit less of Flipper these days, but he's certainly around the place. And Chappell and Phillips together on a microphone has been historically a bit of a special night at the golf club if we ever manage to coordinate the pair of them going together.
Yeah, definitely. But look, it was just I was sitting there, and I don't know if you've caught the interview, but at the end I just sat there and I said, look, this is a bucket list interview, to sit here with Greg Chappell, who was my idol as a kid growing up. You know, we all had a scoop cricket bat and all wanted to, you know, captain Australia and be in that batting lineup in the backyard. But then to sit there with Walshy, who we, you know, listened to his dulcet tones through ABC Grandstand, was just an amazing afternoon with them.
Australia no wicket for 77. Travis Head not out 51. So our boy Trav, another one of our Royal Adelaide Golf Club members, dropped that in 51 from 36 balls and going along very nicely. So Telf, you've got the Sri Lanka tour coming up. What is next for Spirit of Cricket? What's the next box you want to tick, thing you want to achieve?
Well, look, it's rolling out this global T20 tournament where we'll have 8 franchises in each of those countries, and the winning team from each of those conferences will head to a World Championship in Dubai, and all expenses paid trip. So it's each conference, their prize is valued at about $100,000. So they'll all get to go to Dubai, play a week of cricket for nothing. That's
an incentive.
It is, yeah, and you know, we proved the model works. We proved that guys are prepared to pay to be involved in something like this. And you know, I think we had over 200 guys nominate for our draft last year, and that was going nowhere. But now they've heard that, you know, if they win, they're off to Dubai to play against like-minded guys from all around the world, and to bring all of those people from different parts of the world together. And a lot of these guys, you know, won't ever get the opportunity to represent their country, but they'll get to play in the World Championship and be a part of something really special. So that's where I'm headed next. And then, you know, look, we're hoping that, you know, some rich Arab or Indian may reach out to us and want to buy it, and then I can retire back and just travel the world running cricket competitions and having a good time.
Until that rich Indian or Arab comes along, Telf, where can people find you in the meantime? Wallace and I cut our teeth on local sports clubs, and I imagine your message transfers even across sports. I don't think it has to be limited to cricket. Where can people find information about what you're doing and maybe link up?
Yeah, look, it's quite simple. spiritofcricket.com.au is our website. If you go to the socials and search Spirit of Cricket, you'll find our black and gold logo there. That's the brand that we're portraying. And you can reach out there and we'll be in contact with you within 24 hours. But you have actually touched on something very special there with the fact that it doesn't just apply to cricket. We're going to be rolling out the spirit of football and the spirit of baseball and the spirit of basketball, the spirit of life, because of all the things that we can do with the message.
Telf, been great to have you on. Great to hear about the spirit of cricket and the great work you're doing. All the best when you go over to Sri Lanka with your tour, and all the best for the long-term development of the actual message that you're trying to get across to all cricketers. Now, we're going to listen to a little bit of The Spirit of Cricket, written by Paul Costa. And Telf, were you in the backing vocals on this one?
Not in the backing vocals, but I actually got a Guernsey for the film clip. So I am there in the film clip. So thanks very much for having me today. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here.
Here we go. Spirit of Cricket, Paul Costa.
Wicket falls. It's about sportsmanship and standing tall. The tragic surround